Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast, the space where we explore how to design a life of no regrets. I'm your host, Gabriela Embon, relationship and career coach and the author of Becoming a Power Couple. Today's guest, Yuval Selik, is a former CPG founder who now helps other founders navigate trade chaos, recover profit, and scale sustainably. He hosts the Seven Hats podcast and has a new book by the same name. Yuval has a message I believe founders need right now. Success isn't just numbers, it's how you develop and gracefully balance the seven critical areas of your life so that you are able to provide both the impact you seek and the fulfillment you crave. So, Yuval speaks to entrepreneurs whose ambition goes beyond business outcomes, helping them build companies that won't break the people building the companies. Yuval, welcome.
Gabriela, what a pleasure having you on the other side.
Yes, very excited for that. And you took my line, so I won't repeat it. I know you live to help entrepreneurs succeed, but I want to ask you what excites you the most these days?
It's been a crazy year, as we all know. I think 2025 will go down as an anomaly year in some ways. I think that what excites me the most is the convergence of resilience and reinvention in this world. I think we're being tested daily, and the people and the companies that can adapt with speed and integrity are going to be pulling ahead because constraint is forcing clarity and probably less noise. You know what they say, you want to focus on the signal, not the noise. Or as Wayne Dyer would say, magic happens in the silence between the notes. That's where music comes to life. If there was no silence between the notes, it would just be chaos, right? So that's what I'm excited about these days is the human spirit and the ability for us to rise through difficult challenges and uncertainties and disagreements and all of the things that we go through every day. I think that we speak about the golden age. At least mystics have been speaking about the golden age for 6,000 years, and they always say it's coming. It never comes, but they always say it's coming. But I'd like to think that it is coming one of these days where we take our differences apart and really come together as a species, unite and live a life of meaning and fulfillment. So that's my take.
First of all, I have to say that, well, I want to relate to two things you said. I'm so happy you said the human spirit. For the most, when I ask what excites you the most, people talk about AI and what this is going to bring to the world. And I don't deny that. But the fact that and I don't deny the relationship between the two of them either. But the fact that you said the human spirit and the combination of resilience and innovation. So thank you for mentioning that because I resonate with that so much. But you also said we're going to require those who are up to speed. They have the speed and the integrity. And I think for many people hearing these two words in the same sentence might feel like an oxymoron in a way. Do you understand what I mean by that? For some, it
Yeah,
might be, well, I lose all my integrity when I'm on that race.
I think it's not necessarily the speed as much as the noise. You can go fast and still live the kind of life that you can look back at when you're on your deathbed and be proud of. There are but there are some folks in this lifetime and in previous lifetimes that have achieved incredible success and fulfillment by going very fast. I think the difference between them and the rest of us is that they knew how to focus. They knew how to see. The thing is, I have a framework called Activate 168. And basically, it's the fact that we all have 168 hours in a week. I don't care if you're a king. I don't care if you're a president. I don't care if you're working at McDonald's. You got 168 hours. And each hour is a bucket. What do you put in that bucket? Because where you are today is the result of every bucket that you filled in your past. And what you do today and how you fill your buckets today will be how your life is going to look like in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. So it's very important if you want to build a fulfilled life, if you really want to look at your 7 hats, at the areas of life that together create a fulfilling life. You have to make sure that you're applying practice and time to each one of those hats rather than spending most of your time on one area and then the rest of your time is lived with noise, if you think about it. Because let's say you're an athlete and all you do is put your time into your body, nutrition, sleep, but you don't pay attention to any other aspect of your life. That's just as bad as being an entrepreneur and spending all your buckets on your business. Because eventually what happens is that the more you spend on a single area of life, the higher chance it is for you to actually not succeed in that area. And so what would happen is, let's say you have 168 hours and 80% is spent on, just sleep and what you focus on. But the rest, the 20, 30% is spent on noise. Then you're not really focused on your entirety. You're focused on one or two areas of your life, and then the rest of it you're just wasting away with noise. And that's the speed to fulfillment that you're talking about. Because speed is fine, not bad, but you can't burn out either. And unless you really understand how you're spending your time, you will burn out. And that's the thing.
That's right. It's a lot of, we can define burnout as putting so much effort for little reward. If you're not fulfilled, there's little reward because the numbers are not the reward. So too much out, not enough in. And not necessarily the hours per se or working too hard. But I know you learned this. I don't want to say the hard way, but definitely you went through your own experience. Can you share with us a moment when you realized that the way you were defining success was breaking you?
Yes. How much time do you have? All right. So when I moved to Los Angeles from New York, I grew up in New York, lived there for 20 years. And I moved to Los Angeles. I met my wife. I was always a entrepreneur, had billions of ideas and really not doing anything with it. And then meeting my wife, we took a spirituality course, a yoga course, which was 20 hours every weekend for 10 or 15 weeks in a row. So it was really meant for us to learn the spiritual texts and the yoga practices because we were both, on the spiritual path. So I was working during the week and I was living in Costa Mesa, and my wife, or my soon to be wife at that point, was living in Los Angeles. And I used to drive to Los Angeles from Costa Mesa to go to this class on the weekends. And in that class, I came up with an idea of a wellness center. And that wellness center was supposed to be the future of bringing East and West together. And it was designed to be this 40,000 square foot lotus flower looking spiritual geometric architecture palace where you have your treatment rooms on the top, you have your social area, food court, and then you have your meditation practices and then your spa. meditation and yoga. And we came up with this idea and this wonderful, wonderful idea. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to be a entrepreneur anymore. Let me be an entrepreneur. And my wife and I, because we got married and we spent literally all of our money to conduct a feasibility study, uh, to write a business plan. We were all excited, first time entrepreneurs. And we realized that to build a facility like this, such as this in Los Angeles, would cost us around $26 million. And we didn't have $26 million. So we decided, well, what a great idea. Let's go and raise $26 million as first time founders to build a wellness center, which we had no experience in, and will rule the world. So we did. We went out and we tried to raise funds. And I assembled a team. I got a co founder. We hired a fractional CFO. We had a team of 3 or 4 people. We had a couple of other friends that came in and helped us write the business plan. And we went out to try to raise funds, and we couldn't raise any funds. Shocking. So my CFO said to me, well, you know, you're probably not going to raise, I didn't want to tell you this in the beginning, but you're probably not going to raise $26 million. Why don't you raise $1 million? And then that would be a good foundation. Then you can grow from there. So I said, how am I going to raise $1 million? And part of the plan of building this wellness center was the spa. And while researching the spa, we came across a manufacturing facility in the south of France, which had this divine, beautiful French luxury, organic, natural skincare, aromatherapy. And we fell in love with it. And so I woke up one morning after trying to figure out how to raise $1 million. And I said, wouldn't it be great? I had this whole idea of vision in my mind. And I took a piece of paper and I drew it and I put all the boxes together and I presented it. We were at my in-laws, my wife's parents' house in San Francisco. And I remember coming downstairs from the bedroom, drew it all out and presented it to them. And I said, here's how we're going to raise $1 million for the wellness center. And here's how we're going to use that $1 million and make $26 million so we can build our own wellness center, not just raise it full. And the idea was, why don't we launch a skincare line? Because natural and organic skincare, that quality didn't exist in natural stores. So we were kind of a hybrid. It was a hybrid of like a La Mer, La Prairie, very high-end French luxury department store brands, and a Dr. Hashka, for instance, or a Weleda at the natural supermarkets. And we were kind of a hybrid of both. And I said, let's raise $1 million. Let's launch the product line. We got to do as well as L'Oreal. I mean, it's got to be almost close. We'll have billions. We'll be able to open wellness centers all over the world. And somehow, long story short, we were able to raise $1 million. It was $1.1 million, and launch Luvala, which was, my wife's name is Ala, and L apostrophe, right? Uvalla, which is spells Luvala or Love Allah, which her dad came up with the name. So the L apostrophe is an homage to L'Oreal, and Love Allah means divine spirit. So love the divine spirit, which went really well with the whole environment of what we were launching. And that was the beginning of my CPG, consumer packaged goods experience. So I'm not going to go through the whole story, but we quickly learned how difficult CPG is, how much money you actually need, which is way more than you actually think. And instead of doing it right, now I know, but I wish I knew then, we decided to go into Whole Foods. We decided to go into Sprouts. We decided to go into these large chain stores before we were ready to go in. We had the inventory, but we didn't have the funds to support those stores. So then eventually, a few years later, after putting in all my energy into Luvala, struggling and climbing a ladder up a house, right? And I get to the top and I figured out I'm on the wrong house and I don't like the person that's on top.
Why?
And because I was focused on the wrong thing for too long. And that created an environment where I was failing in every area of my life. So the business was struggling. We ran out of money. We were going to close the business down or potentially close the business down. 2008 recession hit, which made it almost impossible to succeed selling luxury skincare in a natural retail store like Whole Foods or Sprouts. My marriage was in shambles because I didn't spend any time on my marriage. So was about to lose my marriage. My health deteriorated because I didn't spend any time on sleep or my health. Okay. I had no financial nest egg because I literally spent my wife's pension plan. We put everything on the line in addition to the 1.1 million that my spirituality was at the lowest, which means that I was focused more on ego than my higher self. So you can see how everything is crumbling around me because I was focused only on the business. And being an entrepreneur, what you need is you need support from your loved ones. And if you don't pay attention to your loved ones and you keep on saying, well, I'll pay attention to you when the business succeeds, or I'll pay attention to you, next weekend after I finish a big project. What happens little by little, you erode this relationship and then you stop getting the support that you need to be an entrepreneur, which is mandatory from your spouse. And if you don't pay attention to your health or your sleep, then you can't think straight and you can't make wise decisions, and you start burning out and you start thinking negative thoughts. And if you don't pay attention to your finances, if something does happen, what do you do to support your family? Because you have zero. Everything went to the business, and now the business doesn't exist anymore because you thought as an entrepreneur that, my business is going to succeed. How many entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship thinking that their business is going to fail? The same amount of folks that go into marriage thinking that they're never going to get divorced. It's exactly the same. Actually, it's worse. It's about 80% failure rate versus marriage, which is 60. So, it's 50, 60. So it's around, it's worse than marriage failure. And then if you don't pay attention to your spirituality, then you lose connection to the source, to knowledge, which is so important, which happens during silence. So you can see where I was at that time period. I was literally about to lose everything, and I didn't have anywhere to go, and I couldn't support my family, and I couldn't pay myself anymore. And basically, I hit rock bottom. And around 2010, 2011, I hit rock bottom, and I realized, wow, look where I am. And that's going back to answer your original question. That's where I figured out the 7 hats. That's where I figured out that I needed to do something differently because I didn't want to do the same thing over and over and over again to achieve the same result. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you because I kind of know a little bit about the 7 hats, but I want our listeners to be familiar with it. But in case I forget, because that happens when you cross the 50s, I want to ask you also, where did you start changing? What was the hat that you focus on to start with?
So I didn't go
Yeah.
on.
But before, can you give us a quick tour of what the 7 hats are? Yeah.
So I'll answer the 7 hats, what they are, but it didn't happen immediately. I didn't come up with the 7 hats probably a decade after that time period. I intuitively started changing things by making changes to my lifestyle. I had to go find a job, which I went back to corporate, and I promised myself never to go back to corporate, and I had to. I was actually driving a limo. This is where hat number 5 came in, the investor. Because the investor is all about making sure you have enough nest egg to support yourself if the business does fail. Because I didn't have that and I couldn't rely on anybody because I borrowed money from everyone already, including family, which is a whole other podcast. I had to go drive a limo for $10 an hour just to prove to the universe that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So I went from a CEO of a brand that was selling to national retail. Everybody from the outside saw the glitz and the glamour, but on the inside, I was dying. And that's what's happening right now with so many other businesses, right? So many entrepreneurs show their falsity, a false self to the world on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Meanwhile, they're dying inside.
Yeah, that's I see that fragmentation happening when for executives and entrepreneurs who go to work, leaders going to work looking like winners when they just came from home, but there it's a whole different story. So I can imagine your feeling of feeling like completely like an imposter, almost that lack of authenticity. I think that not being able to express who you truly are can break your soul.
There's so many emotions, there's so many things that happen when you're hitting rock bottom. But it's the seed bed for,
Yeah,
right? For growth. I actually, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't change anything. As difficult as that time period was, as difficult as it was to go from, you know, inspiring CEO, speaking with national buyers, building a seven-figure business, to driving a limo for $10 an hour, driving those who you aspired to be, and then going back to corporate, which you swore you would never go back to, and starting from scratch to reinvent yourself. That is the part of the journey that is the worthwhile aspect of everyone's life. See, when I first started, I thought that the prize, the trophy, and the win were what I was after. And even till this day, I have to remind myself, even though I know, just so people know, I'm not 100%, but I'm way better than I was in the past. The prize actually isn't what you're after. You think you are, but you're not. Jim Carrey said, I wish that everybody experienced, and I'm paraphrasing, immense success in their life so that they can figure out that that's not what they're after. And so the journey of actually coming back and the day to day reinvention of who I was into who I am today and still reinventing myself into the future is where the magic lies.
absolutely. And what it takes to build a life of no regrets. It's a life of no regrets is not a life of success or achieving, like you said, the status, the money. It's how you led it, how you lived it, and you lived it with speed to course correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Innovation, reinvention, courage, vulnerability. It's the person you're becoming, and not compromising either.
Yeah,
I think not
100%.
compromising unless on mediocrity. It is yes, you had to go back, you had to course correct, so then you can reinvent yourself, and you did not compromise. You did not let the
You don't want to
failure,
compromise unless it violates your core values.
of course. But that's not the compromise I'm talking about. What I mean by not compromising is what exactly is that authentic life that feels like, I wouldn't want it differently.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
this time period that I was going through, and it took a decade or more, I only really figured out and I only named the seven hats in 2020. I
Mm.
didn't have a name for the seven hats. I was practicing it. I was working the plan, but I didn't have a name for it. And I didn't even know that I was going to create this movement or this
Yeah, that's
framework.
when you know it's coming from the right place, from a place of purpose and meaning.
Yeah, I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to make some money. Let me create seven hats. That wasn't the
Exactly.
reason. But building, when what happened was, and how they came about, and I'll name the seven hats, is 2020 happened, another black swan. I have a new company called PromoMesh. It's a software company that we grew to be very successful. Again, seven-figure business. And we were riding the wave. 2019 was an amazing year. I was working for the bank. So just to give folks a little history there or backstory. When I lost my company Luvala in 20, or at least the retail portion, which means I had to go to work, it was 2012 when I went to work, back to work. From 2012 to 2020, I worked two careers. I worked the bank during banking hours, and I created PromoMash with my co-founder Chris Ambarian on weekends and nights in little spaces. So I literally was focused on two full-time careers for 8 years. And in 2019, we were doing so well with great projections that I told my wife, honey, I need to quit the bank. And, we were getting a six-figure salary plus, benefits. And it was nice. It was nice to not have to rely on PromoMash, on the company in order
That's probably
to,
one of the reasons that it grew nicely also, because there wasn't
yeah,
less attachment.
it was, yeah, exactly. And so I decided to quit and I gave my notice on March 1st, 2020. So I gave my notice on March 31st of 2020. I had no job. And my company PromoMash lost 80% of its revenue overnight because we were in the event space.
I want to pause, freeze that moment, and ask you what was going on through your mind at that moment, because you already been there. You go, what's going on here? What are you doing? Why? I mean, I don't know. I want to hear it from you. What was going on in your mind that moment?
That's where the Seven Hats was born, because I realized that I can deal with this situation
Differently.
180 degrees differently than I dealt with the first Black Swan, because the past
That
10
was
years I was focused on the Seven Hats. No name yet, but I was focused on the Seven Hats. We had a cushion. I had my health. I was very healthy. I had mindset. I was doing every hat over time. Now, granted, there's no balanced life. It's a balancing act. So I was balancing. Sometimes when work needed me more, I spent more on work. Sometimes when my relationship with Allah needed me more, I spent time with Allah. And all of it had a balancing act of the last 10 years. And one day when it hit and we knew that we're going to lose 80% of our revenue, and I had nothing to fall back on because my six-figure job was gone. No, I didn't have um, anything to back me up. And then it came to me. I said, wait a second. Hat number one, the soul, mindset, loving yourself. Boy, I've been doing that. That's why I can handle the pressures that are on me right now. We had a team of, I don't even know, 30 people or so in different time zones, and we had to figure it out. We had no money to pay them, so we had to figure it out. So the soul gave me the strength and the mindset to get up and have a clear mind to make decisions. Hat number two, the athlete. I had my morning routine, my evening routine. I had my workouts. I was eating well. I was sleeping well. So I had the energy to be able to push through the difficulty. Hat number three, the servant. That's the relationships with others. I spent a lot of time focusing on the relationship with those who I love, right? And that could support me through another black swan where before I didn't. Hat number four, the entrepreneur. Well, I spent a lot of time on focusing on my business, the fundamentals, really understanding how to build a company the right way versus the first time, right? There's nothing more dangerous in the human species than a first time founder. The only more dangerous species is a first time founder with VC money. That's the only more dangerous, you know, human on the planet. But I was no longer a first time founder. I understood that fear won't get me anywhere. I understood that making decisions off of fear and ego won't get me anywhere. So I had to make fundamental sound decisions, support my team, give them the encouragement, show up, right? That's hat number four. Hat number five, the investor. We saved. we had a cushion
Mm.
to be able to withstand at least a year of no pay. So I didn't have to go and drive a limo. I didn't have to be fearful because I saved during times that I didn't need to save. I could have spent that money, right? But I saved because I knew that I never wanted to be in the same place again after my first company, not having the financial means to take care of my family. So that's hat number 5. Hat number 6, the philanthropist. Because when you have so much and when you're blessed, which many people are blessed, they don't even know they're blessed, but they're blessed. It is your duty to give back. So what did I do? I gave back to my clients. I gave them free product. I gave them extensions. I did everything that I could. Spent time with entrepreneurs, gave them support anywhere that I could give back. I did. And that made the mission even so much more powerful and allowed me to find fulfillment during a very difficult time, which was 2020. And then hat number 7, the seeker. That is the soul is your inward hat. The seeker is your hat to connect with your higher self. And so that the meditation, the ability to connect outside of my ego and really find that space over the past decade really helped me ground myself. And so those 7 hats just became apparent. And I said, wow, I got to start a podcast. And in 2020, I started a podcast called The 7 Hats. And I wasn't perfect every week. So I am launching my 100th episode soon. I have like 3 or 4 more to launch, but it will be my 100th. I recorded my 100th episode, which is great. And, life is different because of what I've done with the 7 hats. And now I'm ready to teach it. So my book is not coming out this year. It's not out yet. I'm writing it. I'm in my second draft, and it's going to take at least a year to write. It's a labor of love, and I've actually learned so much about myself and about my story, and it's just incredible to write a book. You felt that as well. It's a baby. It's your launch. You're creating something that is not easy to create. It takes a lot out of you, especially if you have to still run a business and do everything else and have a family. But it's hopefully going to launch in 2026. And it's my story of how I came about the 7 hats. What frameworks did I build? How do I manage my time? How do I manage my activities to be able to write a book and run a business and live a great, fulfilled life? Because it's possible, but it's only possible if you fill the 168 buckets with the right activities.
So, what promise does the book make that most business books don't?
The book is a memoir meets instructional manual, like a self-help book. And it's not designed to tell you the exact things you need to do. It gives you the frameworks. It gives you the overall understanding of what you need to do once you understand the foundation. But it's intended for high achievers, probably entrepreneurs, who are either facing a bottom or about to face rock bottom and burnout, to find a way out and to live the life that I'm living now comparatively to the life that they're living currently. Because I've been there and I know what it means to burn out and what it means to run around this golden hamster wheel, trying to chase a carrot that never is able to be reached. That's what I want them to avoid or get out of so they can find true fulfillment. And again, it goes back to if you're climbing a ladder, you want to climb
The right one.
on the right house. And when you get to the top, you want to like the person that's on top. And that's what the book promises. If you follow the book, if you understand the foundation, if you work on the frameworks, you will learn how to climb on the right house and you will love the person that's on top. And you will finally find true fulfillment, not just achievement.
Mm.
Because ultimately, There are too many achievers out there. Millionaires, billionaires, scientists, just achievers. It doesn't matter which industry. You can be a movie star, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a Nobel Peace Prize scientist or philanthropist, who it doesn't matter. When you get to the top, if you're just getting to the top with achievement or through achievement, you find yourself on antidepressants, not loving yourself, family that doesn't know who you are, doesn't love you, right? Many areas of life that just crumble on top of your achievement. And then the achievement means nothing. Because if you achieve the greatest success in the world and you don't have anybody to share it with, what do you really have? Because you can't take it with you.
So, I mean, this is music to my ears, right? You're speaking my language, is what I believe in. I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I also want to be mindful of our listeners' time. So I'm going to ask you some lightning round quick hits, if you don't mind. What's a hat you're strengthening this quarter or working on lately?
This quarter is the entrepreneur hat because it's been a really tough year for business owners. And I'm not really focused on what normally you would focus on as an entrepreneur for your business. I'm focusing on the foundational principles of reducing the need that my business needs of me. Ryan Dice said there's a entrepreneur paradox. The more important that the entrepreneur is to the business, the less valuable the business is. And the only way to do that is through systems and process and SOPs and training and building the foundation during not during good times, but during difficult times. Because you're facing difficult times because you don't have the foundation set.
And that's what your company does for others, right?
Yeah, I mean, we help brands, consumer packaged goods brands, manage their trade spend, which is their commercial spend once they get on the shelf and start selling, which is the second largest spend on their P&L, other than cost of goods. That's a big spend. It could be 20, 25, 30% of their gross revenue. So we help them with the foundational aspects of how to manage the plan, how to look at interim, in flight, how to look at actuals, how to connect the two, how to understand return on investment, where to invest, where to pull back. So again, foundational, yes. This is a little bit different. This is more business operational foundational practices where you're looking at your operating plan, right? How your business runs. You start mapping all of the different aspects of your business. How do you create new business and how do you serve those clients? And then mapping out exactly what everybody does. And from there, you want to create the process that is as automated as possible, but also as efficient as possible. So that's what I'm focusing on right now because this my company needs it more than ever. Because when you're starting a brand or a company, there are a lot of band-aids out there that you're putting on fires because it's you're always fighting fires. And so fighting fires and working on operations and the operating plan doesn't go well together because there's no time to focus on foundation.
You're in self-preservation mode.
You're in self-preservation mode. So you got to step back, and this is what I'm doing because I feel like the other areas of my life, even though I'm still focusing on them, they're good. They're in a good space. So I want to focus again when I spoke about the balancing act. The balancing act means that when you have a good quarter to focus on your business and it can then affect your future in a positive way, well, then focus on that aspect of your business. But then maybe the next quarter or, throughout the quarter, you're starting to see a little delta in your fitness or your nutrition. Well, then you start moving a little bit of that focus towards that. You never lose focus of your seven hats. You're always balancing through them because they're all important, but just sometimes one hat is more important than the others.
Yeah. That's the true work-life balance that I usually talk about. It's not dividing your time 50-50. Last question. What's one line you hope readers underline twice in your book?
It's the line about where true success lies. that it lies in the fulfillment aspect of your being and not the hustle. There are many lines said in different ways throughout the book, but that's paraphrasing them. Because it's such an important concept, almost every chapter has this line said in a different way. And that's, if there's one thing that folks get out of my book, is that stop chasing success or the prize. You have to find what fulfills you, and everybody's different. But you have to find fulfillment in this lifetime because the world isn't friendly to humans. You're spinning on a big ball in space, thousands of miles an hour, and everything in that ball wants to kill you all the time, 24 hours a day. Something is trying to kill you, and you're just trying to survive. So the environment is not friendly to human beings. So you got to find a way to build your legacy. You got to find your way to find peace and fulfillment in a world that will probably give you more no's than yeses, that will give you more problems than successes, and that will mostly not meet your expectations, which is where a lot of problems lie when the world doesn't meet your expectations. But it's not the world's fault. The world is fine the way that it is. It's you that must play the game in the right manner with the right instructions to be able to live in this world in the best possible way, no matter your circumstances, because you do not have control of almost anything in your life except for what you do and how you receive and act on the tail end of whatever happens. So that's it. That's what I would say.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. I interview David Lapin, who used to work with Nelson Mandela at the time. He's from South Africa. And he shared that Mandela, when he asked Mandela after he was freed, what was going on in your mind the first day? And Mandela said, the first day you were, in jail, you were looking at Cape Town, beautiful city from that island that you're now. What was going on through your mind? And he said, well, I made a list of everything that I lost, my businesses, my friends, my freedom, my relationships, my activism, everything he believed in. I realized that the only thing I did not lose was my dignity because nobody can take it away from me. If I lose it, it's because I gave it away.
Yep. I think he had a line said, lead so that the people closest to you grow in dignity and strength.
That's right. That's right. He says the way I practice dignity was how I treated other people, including the guards that were less than friendly with me. So that was a very inspiring line, and the one you just said, and the story that David was sharing. And as I hear your words, and I put it in my words, and I remember David's words, and I put it in my words. For me, is live a life not only of dignity, live a life of no regrets. A life that feels that whether it went great or not, whether you achieved the results you were looking for or not, you chose it for the right reason. For the right reason. And I always say that as adults, most of our choices are either driven by the need to correct our childhood, the need to prove something, which is also a form of correction, or obligation. And ask yourself enough why? Why do I want this? But not just once. Keep asking that in a loop until you get to that level of clarity, that distilled level of clarity. That is power. Clarity is power. That's what I feel is what you were mentioning is make sure when you climb that ladder, you have arrived to the right house and you like the person you are when you're there.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, and that's the aim of the seven hats, right? In Mandela's, concept. Fill your 168 with what sustains your dignity and eliminates regret.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Yuval. Can people pre-order your book?
Not yet. So if you want to read the book, I don't know when it's going to come out, but you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. So Yuval, Yuval, and Selik, Selik. I don't think there are many Yuval Seliks on LinkedIn, but maybe there are. But you can find me on LinkedIn and connect. And when the book comes out and when things materialize, I will let you know.
Beautiful. Thank you so much because today we didn't just talk scale, we talk sustainable scale, right?
Yes.
So I encourage everyone, and including myself, to write your one sentence success definition and make sure that it includes the seven hats Yuval was referring to. So you are climbing the right, you
I hope
arrived at
so.
the right place.
I hope so.
And you know what? Even if not, we can course correct. That's
Course correct. Exactly.
that's my probably one of my favorite words.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to course correct. This is what life is all about. We live in a constant feedback loop, right?
Yes.
That's the engineer in me. Measure and course correct. Measure and course correct.
And the last thing I will say, be grateful,
Mm,
because no matter who you are, there's probably someone out there that has it worse off than you. And for some of us, 99% of the human population has it worse than you. And we don't see it that way.
absolutely. Do you have a newsletter called The Balancing Act?
Yeah, it hasn't launched yet. I'm kind of in the middle of setting everything up for my, personal brand. But again, just connect with me on LinkedIn and it will be available to you when it comes out.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your story in such an open heart way that we can all connect, understand, and feel. And to you, dear listeners, thank you for your time. Please subscribe and share this episode with any founder who measures everything but their well-being. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until next time, keep engineering a life and a relationship you truly love.
Gabrielle, it was such a pleasure. Great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.